Welcome to Follow Your Joy podcast, where intuition is the doorway to your wisdom, your genius, and your joy. I'm your host, Marla Diane, and I've been transforming creative entrepreneurs' lives for over 26 years. Through two businesses as a success coach and a business strategist, and prior to that, an entertainment publicist and a talent manager for 2 decades. It's time to make joy your inner GPS for life and business decisions rather than lean on your logic and reason first. You'll not only be following what is most authentic to you and for you, but you will live the beautiful life that's meant just for you. You'll come to learn that following your joy is a life and a business strategy. Listen in for inspiring entrepreneurial stories and solocasts that illuminate how by trusting your intuition, you'll create a fulfilling result. Want to learn how to access, trust, or up-level your intuition? Join me in the conversation to find out how. Well, hello, everybody. When this episode comes out, my guest, who I am delighted to have you meet and hear his remarkable story, we will be preparing to leave for a 2-week adventure to Italy. In my previous episodes, I shared all the details and the backstory to this trip, but I waited until now to tell you who I was traveling with. So my dear friend and former client, Josef is owner and creative director, that's kind of my thing there, creative director of Botanica Floral Design and Botanica Floral and Home in Portland, Oregon. Botanica Floral Design is his wedding, event, and corporate account side of his business and brand, while he recently opened Botanica Floral and Home, which is his lifestyle boutique. Oh, it's gorgeous, featuring a wide range of florals, plants, accessories, home, and gift items. And like I said, I've been there and it's really a gorgeous boutique right in downtown Portland. So, Josef, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, before I give you a proper introduction, I want to share with our listeners how we met. It was October 2019, and it was at the Wedding MBA conference in Las Vegas.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
3-day conference where I was the speaker, and you had attended what I was doing, which was raising your wealth consciousness for higher sales conversion presentation. And, one thing led to another, and we began coaching. It was prior to the pandemic. So it was early 2020. I remember it was January. I think it was January. But yes, as we began coaching, and then, of course, the pandemic hit in March.
Mm-hmm.
And we then navigated the coaching in your business all through 2020. And, it's incredible the job that you did to navigate that craziness, including it was like a whole website redesign and brand, right?
Yep. We completely did the website and everything.
This was all through 2020, through the pandemic. It's like not a lot phases Josef. He just kind of keeps the eye on the ball, man. He just goes. So yeah, we spent the best part of 2020 just coaching and supporting you and navigating that, as well as obviously the pandemic. So that was quite a roller coaster ride, but it was definitely exciting, and it up leveled your business. And along the way, we both had this incurable craving and passion for all things Italian. And I'm grateful that, we built a fun friendship that really just continues to grow since then. And now we're headed to the land of piazzas and rolling hills and historical villas and gelato and espresso and pasta and all that. So, let's have a quick chat on, I mean, what are you looking forward to for our trip?
A gelato.
I know. Yeah.
As I told you before, my first trip to Italy, which was a month-long trip in 2017, my goal was to have gelato every day while I was there. And I almost made it, I think. But I don't need to continue that, but now and then would be great. What am I not looking forward to? If you've not been, it's just an amazing country. The history, the beauty, and I don't know, I'm just drawn to it. I always have been. It's like
Yeah,
a soul connection.
totally.
So can't explain it. It's just one of those things. But every time I would see a movie or read a book that took place in Italy, I was like, oh my God, I have to go.
Yeah.
And finally made that happen many, 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 many years later after I discovered I had this thing for Italy.
Yeah.
And people go, why do you want to go back all the time? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just drawn back and it's my happy place.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too.
Or just, you know, relaxing and immersing myself in that culture
Yeah.
and seeing the history is amazing and all that. It's just one of my favorite places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to mention the food,
That
that
and
goes,
the food. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
of course. Sure. And the people. Oh my gosh. The life-changing part for me, and I'm sure you can agree, it's just that the people and
Mm-hmm.
the locals and how they really prioritize connection. They prioritize, oh, come. They don't even know you.
Yeah, in your
And,
family,
and your
feel like
family.
family.
Yeah. They invite you over for lunch or dinner. Here, sit here and join us. And like, they're so generous and so open. And I just love that. And it really supports the whole idea about piazzas. I mean, that's
Mhm.
where they gather, especially in the smaller towns. I don't know so much. And, like Rome, it's a pretty big city and lots of piazzas, but the smaller towns, that's really where they have all their connections,
Mhm.
in the piazza. So I hear you. It's a soul space for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you see why we're going, everybody. I know we both have this like complete just craving to just be there. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to that experience. And man, are we gonna have fun. Oh,
Hmm.
man.
Yeah.
Once we arrive in that Rome airport, that's when it's really gonna be super real. I'm gonna start doing the happy dance. you know? Okay, good. Let's go ahead and give you a proper introduction. Joseph has always had a love of flowers and plants and design. And so, as he says, this industry kind of found him, chose him, and you'll hear the story behind that. Because floral design is his second career. He'd spent 21 years in New York City as a singer, dancer, and this was off Broadway or Broadway?
I've
Both?
Broadway touring, regional, the whole thing.
Okay, good. Because when it was time to move on beyond that career, which again you'll hear, the story behind all that, is that it was a natural choice for him to go into, florals and plants and such. Though, he had some, of course, soul searching and intuition to listen to before making that decision. So yeah, let's jump into stories about joy and intuition and your success with it. So tell our listeners about the work, obviously, that you do and why you chose this path as literally it's an act of following your joy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, yeah.
As I said, as you said, I've always, as a kid growing up, always loved plants and flowers, was always gardening, and actually even took over the yard. My mom used to do all the gardening, but I ended up, putting in a huge vegetable garden and all this stuff. And in high school, when you're trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life, what career do I want to do, what I want to study, I thought about going into, being a florist or in that field, but something at that point wasn't resonating with me. I kind of knew that wasn't it for me,
Mhm.
though I didn't quite know what it was until I got to college, and realized I really wanted to do theater, where I had gotten involved in high school,
Mhm.
but never really had much encouragement in that endeavor,
Yep.
and hadn't really thought you could really make a career out of it until I saw the national tour of A Chorus Line in Chicago from the last row of the balcony in the Schubert Theater. And I was like, that's what I want to do. But
Uh,
I had no idea how to go about it. And like I said, there was no one encouraging me. So
mm,
I was going to go off and do something else. And then my inner voice kept saying, nope, you do it now or you'll regret it.
mhm.
So I changed majors, and much to everyone's surprise and dismay, especially my parents, they were like, "You want a what?" And but as soon as they, I changed schools, and as soon as they saw that I was, working and making some progress and some success, they were, very supportive.
Good. Good.
And then off to New York I went, and had a good career.
Mhm.
Worked a lot, met a lot of great people, worked with a lot of great people.
Mhm.
Had a lot of fun. It's a crazy business. It's a lot of work and a lot of frustration, but also a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But when it was time to move on, because as a dancer, you kind of have to at some point,
Mhm.
but your body just doesn't want to do it anymore or can't do it anymore, or you can't get hired because you're too old. um, I spent, it took me a few years to figure out what the next step was. And I pursued a few other things, and I was like, no, 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 no. And then I kind of hit on the idea of, why don't I combine some of my passions and, with the flowers and plants and home decor, retail, um, design. I never actually set out to be just a florist,
Mhm.
but I wanted to have a more rounded, more all encompassing business, hence the retail store. And I was like, that's it. It finally struck a chord in me that said, yes, this is what I should do. It was like this voice in my head was just like, yes.
Do it. The vision. It
Yeah.
had you had the vision of,
And I even
yeah.
I was up in Maine visiting with some friends,
Mhm.
and we were at lunch one day, and I was like, I had this idea,
Mhm.
and this is kind of what I want to do. And I kind of said I want to do, combine all these things into like an earth friendly organic home store. And they were just like, oh my God, great idea. And it was just like the universe, responding to me saying, yes, you're on the right path here. So, so it was very clear. The intuition was very, very clear on that one. And so I ended up moving to Portland. Once again, it took me a while to finally listen to my inner voice as to if this was the right place for me. I thought about Boston. I thought about somewhere outside of the New York area,
Mhm.
where I'd be close to friends and all that. But my voice kept saying Portland. And I was like, all right, let's go back out there and check it out. I had been here, several times on tour with Broadway shows and always loved it. And I came back, and like literally driving from the airport to downtown Portland, I was like, this is it. I just knew. Once again, very clear. And a month and a half later, I was here.
Wow.
And then
Very
then
clear.
the the economy crash of 2008 happened as
Right.
soon as I moved here, and the bank was like, well, great idea, but there's no money. We're not going to lend you any money. And
Mm.
so I was like, okay, now what do I do? And I decided to focus on the floral aspect
Mm.
and just to get a job, because I learned I was, after 20 plus years in the theater,
Mm.
I wasn't qualified for a lot of jobs, or I was overqualified for a lot of jobs. So I said, okay, I guess I got to do this on my own. And I said, let me pursue floral. And I got a job in a shop
Mm.
fairly, right away. And then after a few months, she closed because the economy just, killed her. and her business. And then I said, okay, now what? And I took some classes and then got the idea, well, let me just start doing my own thing. And then it just started happening. I met through a chance networking event, met these guys, and they said, hey, we have a retail store. Do you want to sublease space from us there?
Oh,
And I was like,
perfect.
oh, okay. And the price was like amazingly inexpensive. I was like, what's the catch? And, but no, they just wanted to help, they needed help with their rent and they thought it would be a great addition to their brand. And
Mhm.
so all of a sudden I was a retail florist, much to my surprise as everyone else's.
Wow.
And then it just slowly built from there. You
Mm.
know, you know, there were hurdles, but there were no like roadblocks, and one thing led to another. And then I moved into another space, more warehouse space, and then into my current studio. And then a year ago, April, I was like, okay, it's time to reopen a retail store. And right in the pandemic, I was like, all right, let's take another risk. And I am.
And there's a lot, everybody, there's a lot of details in between all that. Obviously. I mean, you were in business, was it 8 years by the time you, or 9 years by the time you were ready to open up the retail store?
Um, let's see, technically officially started the business 2010.
Okay.
So yeah, about
Hmm.
about 10 years.
Yeah.
10,
Yeah.
11.
Yeah. That you had
And
built
I
in.
wanted to do it before, but
Right.
just couldn't find a space, didn't have the resources
Right.
and all that. It just, you know, things were roadblocks kept appearing in that.
Yeah, we had many discussions during your
But
coaching
yeah,
around
but
around finding the right place.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just all the right circumstances
Hmm.
come together.
Yeah. I'm curious, which I'm sure some of the listeners are, is that, when you started at the back of a retail store,
Mm.
which is, I mean, all the pieces, always when we're on. So everybody, when you follow your intuition, it's meant to transform you. It's meant for you specifically, not anyone else. And when we do honor that, it's like I call it following the breadcrumbs, right? Follow the yellow brick road, and things start to show up for you. And that's what it sounds like to me, is that all the pieces just started to show up for you. By the way, would you like to rent at the back of our store? It's like, well, yeah, So what did you do to start getting clients? What were you doing to
Oh
build the
boy.
momentum?
Networking, a lot of networking events,
Okay.
um, industry events, plus non just general networking. Um, One thing I did right away was I joined this networking group,
Mm-hmm.
and that led to me joining BNI, which is Business
Yeah.
Network International, which is
Yeah.
international, very well known organization,
Yeah.
small
That's right.
businesses referrals and all that. And I've been doing that for 12 years now. I still do it every week, every Friday morning we meet. That's been a big help. Um, and the wedding industry, that was a big help. Meeting those networking group with our local wedding industry
Yeah.
and just connecting with people, wedding shows. Um, some advertising. There's all the wedding websites like Wedding Wire and The Knot and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it just started out small
Yeah.
and then just kept growing from
Right.
that. Um, then of course, web presence, SEO,
Right.
you know, you just slowly added stuff. And as you can afford it, you just,
Mhm.
okay, now I need to do an e-commerce and I can do this and what have you.
Yeah. No, I think the networking, that's really key. That's what I was looking for, is really what was the core action that you were taking. And for any business, that is it.
Hmm.
That's it, is the networking groups, going to the industry events. It's the connecting of people.
Yeah.
No one's going to know about you. Yes, that you can be online, but that's a whole other
Yeah. That's a whole nother.
discussion.
And also I did some, let's say pro bono things
Hmm.
to get known.
Yeah.
Connect like we did. There's the Cascades Age Project here in Portland,
Oh, yeah.
and they do a big fundraiser every year.
Mm.
And a friend of mine, this woman who I had met in one of the groups, was like, maybe you should volunteer to do the floral for that.
Great
And so I
exposure.
did,
Yeah.
and that gave me some other connections. And then the next year when I did, I actually got paid to do it,
Yeah. Yeah. Great
and
exposure.
so on and so on. So
Mm,
sometimes those kind of connections, even though you're like giving stuff away at first,
no,
which is
that's
kind of
okay.
hard,
Yeah.
but it pays off sometimes big time.
It really
Like,
does. Yeah.
there was another nonprofit that did this Go Green conference every year here and up in Seattle. And they
Hmm.
had asked me if I wanted to do the flowers for that. And of course, it was basically for free.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you sponsored it.
yeah. And then down the road, I started getting a few paid things from them. But then one of the people who was there, like, I think she did like marketing and events for them,
Mm.
she left and went to the Portland Opera.
Mm.
And then I get an email from her saying, hey, we're looking for a floral sponsor. Would you be interested? And I was like, hell yes.
Yeah.
A lot of it's, there's, trade. I get season tickets,
Yeah.
advertising the program, and they get free flowers.
Mm.
But that's led to paid gigs through them. And it just goes on and on from that,
Yeah,
little
that's
things here
it.
and there. So,
That's great.
yeah.
What was that fact that I'd love our listeners to hear? I loved what you were doing in 2020. Remember when you did that day of giving away flowers?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so sweet. What was it that you
Well,
did?
well, when
Yeah.
the pandemic really, when the shutdown happened,
Yeah.
um, our wholesale flower market was going to close.
Mm,
You know, um, we have like several large wholesalers and then a bunch of local
hmm.
growers and stuff there.
Yeah.
And like two of the big wholesalers were like from their corporate, they was like, we're going to shut down. So they were giving away all this product. I mean, it was heartbreaking the amount of flowers they were just going to toss.
Wow.
So they're like, come and get it. If you can use it, come take as much as you want.
Mhm.
So we went and just loaded up the van, and some of it we could have used because we still had some orders coming in, but
Mhm.
we were like, we're never going to use this all in time. So we decided, let's make bouquets with
Mhm.
it, and we'll just leave them in random areas of the city
Mhm.
with a sign that says, please take, and of course, we had our branding on it.
Yeah.
And I forgot what other verbiage we had on the sign, but basically it was like, take one, give one to someone else, and basically spread the joy. And other florists started doing the same thing. They heard what we were doing. So there was like people giving away flowers all over the place and doing
Mm.
floral installations randomly on the street, on buildings, all this place. It was really great. It was a nice, some nice press on that.
Oh yeah, I remember that. You got
People
television
were like,
coverage. Hmm.
thrilled to be getting the looks on their faces was terrific.
Well, it was the timing. I mean, not only was the act, obviously very compassionate, but it was the timing that you did it when everybody needed something
Yeah,
positive.
yeah,
Because I mean, this was in pretty close, wasn't it close to lockdown
yeah.
or
It was like right after
yeah.
they were like everything was shutting down.
Yeah. And it's like whatever any one of us could
Yeah,
do to add something positive to our life because it was just such doom and gloom that's what I think that's another reason too why the news station, the TV news station picked that up besides whoever it was that sent them the press release.
hmm,
Yeah, the whole thing was just, I loved it.
yeah.
It
It was
was
fun.
so great.
We
So
had, I mean, it was a lot of flowers. The
yeah,
studio was quite full. But
yeah,
it was fun. It was great to be able to use the product for something good and
yeah.
not let it go to waste and into the dump.
For sure. Yeah. Gosh. So I'm curious, in your childhood, was there anyone that influenced you about the love of plants and florals?
Um, I mean, my grandmother always had houseplants and a
Mm-hmm.
lovely yard, and my mom always had houseplants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but That's probably where it started. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no one per se that was like, here, you should do this, or here, you should do this. It was more a lot of self-discovery and self exploration with
Yeah.
all that, especially as I got early teens, tweens, teens, you know, getting books out of the library and learning how to do this and propagate this and all
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
There's always plants and flowers like at my grandmother's and stuff. That's what I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
most.
I think that's what I remember. I think you had an influence from your grandmother.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's interesting how you point out it's self-discovery. Like she didn't go, well, why don't you come over and let me show you how to whatever.
Hmm.
That it doesn't have to look that way. In
Yeah.
other words, she was just modeling the behavior, if you will, or the creativity. She was
Hmm.
modeling that for you that was, what caught obviously your attention. And it was meant to be, but
Hmm.
we always have, when you start connecting the dots, and that's, you and I've talked about this before, is that when you start connecting the dots and, success leaves clues, is that there's always somebody, in our life as a child that helped imprint something around our
Hmm.
genius talents, our creativity, our, fill in the blank.
As I mentioned, my mom gardened a lot.
Yeah.
She would always do that, and I would always be out there helping.
Yeah.
And so there, a lot of it came from that too.
Mhm. If you're into exploring, geez, I wonder really, what if I did something else in my life? I always say, go back to your childhood. What were the things that really lit you up? It's kind of similar to Joseph. What are some of the things that you were doing that, you really didn't think, you know, too much about it later
Hmm.
on in life, but it was definitely something in your childhood. Excuse
And
me.
thinking back now, it just brought up another
Hmm.
my connection to dance
Mm,
starting as a kid. Um, I was never I was not the athlete of the family. We'll say that. That was
okay.
and I had no interest in sports
Hmm.
really. I
Yeah.
was not very good at little league, though I'd give it a shot. um, but my friend Tim, or as he's still known as Timmy, from down the street, he and his sister started taking dance class, and so did I. I joined them. I don't know what, I can't remember all the specifics about it,
Mhm.
but probably I don't even know how long I did it. I remember doing it and then all of a sudden stopping, did a recital, but that's when I first started dancing when I was a kid.
Oh,
And then didn't really get back to it till high school.
right.
And I, for the life of me, cannot remember why I stopped
Mm, that's
that,
a
but
that's a good question.
yeah,
Yeah, like why did you stop?
I have no
You
idea.
know, you could have think about that. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
There's the themes, right, in
yeah.
your life presented to obviously where you are now as an adult, which is dance, theater, plants, flowers.
Mm,
Like and I know we all know that. It didn't just show up, in your life. It's been a common thread
yeah.
throughout your entire life, which is about your artistry. It's about your joy, your passion. When you followed your intuition, right, and then you created obviously a fulfilling result, I think we get it. I mean, your life right now, today, where it's at, is because you did that.
Hmm. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just I cannot emphasize it enough, everybody. Your intuition, not your logic. Not your logic. Please don't lean on your logic when it comes to making, some important decisions in your daily life, let alone your overall life, is that our intuition, from what program should I be offering if you're in the service industry, or what account should I go after as a floral designer, or, I mean, anything that on a daily basis, whatever your vocation is, don't be looking for that fast, quick answer out of your logic, right? Out of your reasoning. Sit with it. Listen to your intuition. And it's a vibe. How does it feel to you, Joseph? I mean, how can you describe when
Um,
when you're listening, yeah, to your intuition and it's a hit?
sometimes it's so clear. Like
Mm-hmm.
the decision to pursue theater, it was so clear. And
Mm-hmm.
the decision to move to Portland, that inner voice,
It's like a nudge,
yeah,
right?
it was like so overwhelmingly loud.
Mm-hmm.
Other than it's just a gut feeling. It's just like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah,
And of course, especially opening the retail store, I'm like, am I crazy? Of course, then you question it.
always.
And I was like, why do I want to do this? Am I crazy? People think I'm nuts.
Doesn't matter.
But I kept coming back to, yes, this is what I want to do. Like you say, I tried to get out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you have to think through all the practical things and all the pros and cons and what it's going to take and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But when the decision basically came down to what my gut said.
Correct.
As they say, you jump and then the parachute will.
Yeah, you leap and the net will
Yeah,
appear.
that's it. And
Yeah,
then it
yeah,
will catch.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So when I look back at all the big decisions of my life, that's basically what they are.
Yeah. Everyone, I mean, all the stories that, I'm sharing here, it just one gets better after another. And there is an absolute, thread through all of these, which is, taking a left turn instead of a right turn,
Mm.
or changing your mind in the middle of, in your case, I think it was college and changing your degrees. That was, Scott did that too. The one in the previous episode before yours is that, that's what goes on is when we listen to the intuition. And again, as you pointed out, intuition, everybody, is not logical. Don't look for the logic in your intuition. You're not going to find it. Right? Please trust. That's where all the trust comes in, is that when something feels right, the vibe, the inner nudge, you just get it. It's just an overall vibe, you know.
Yeah.
You
And
just
sometimes it's a voice.
it's a voice. It can be a
Yeah.
voice.
It's a
Yeah.
loud and clear, the voice of God.
Just about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about.
Because
But
it
it's
reminds me of, and I told you this back when we were coaching.
yeah.
When back in when I was in New York, I went through a little medical,
Mm.
oh, I don't know, not crisis. It was, I had a brain tumor.
It wasn't little.
Small.
Yeah.
And during kind of, it was benign. We knew that from the beginning. So I had some time before I had to have surgery.
Mm.
And I was out on tour with the show, and I was doing a bunch of therapies and like Reiki and craniosacral therapy and all this stuff. And one day I was in a session of craniosacral therapy, and you're kind of zoning out. And literally, it was like this big booming voice in my head saying, "Your life needs to be surrounded by a garden."
Oh
And
yeah.
I was like, "What? What does that mean?" And I kept thinking, "Oh, it means I need to buy a house. I need property to have a garden." And it wasn't until fast forward, almost 10, well, not 10 years, but several years
Uh-huh.
in getting into this business, I was like, this is the garden. Being surrounded by the plants and flowers is part of my career and all that. That was the garden. So it took, like I said, quite a while to figure out what that meant, but it
Mhm.
always stuck in my head. But it was so distinct. I was almost like, who
Yeah.
said that?
Yeah.
Literally, I
Where'd
thought
that come
someone was in the
from?
room saying that to me.
Yeah. Where'd
Yeah,
that come from?
it was crazy.
That's a good example of that.
I wish it was always that clear, but
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, but the big ones, I mean, the
yeah.
really big important decisions, it's like a knocking on your door.
Mhm.
That's you gotta listen to it, and you cannot listen to anyone else's opinion about it. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, and it's never logical. Just leap and the net will appear.
Yeah.
Good. Love that story. But, based on your life experience thus far, what would you give our creatives that are listening? What kind of, advice?
Basically, just follow your heart and take the risks necessary to achieve your goals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even though they can be scary. I mean, opening the retail store, I'm still scared.
Yeah.
When it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to the dollars.
Sure.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I still, I try not to worry or stress out about it, but it's always kind of there at this point because it's still, we're still new and you're in that growth phase and you're still climbing uphill with it. You
Mhm.
haven't reached that first plateau where you can just kind of go, things are good,
Mhm.
Yeah, just someone mentioned to me, oh yeah, you're a risk taker. And I was like, really? But then when I looked back at it, I was like, yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah, you know me. I'm always going to be telling you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow your heart and take risks.
Good. Good, good, good. Yeah. And you now, based on everything you've just shared today, that's what you did.
Hmm.
You're a walking example of that. Listening to your heart's the same thing as listening to your intuition. So, thanks for that modeling of that behavior. I like that. And that's why, this to me, I just wanted a platform to validate and share with people about this truth about life is when you follow your intuition, you follow your joy, and you don't try to make logic of it, you will have the life that was meant for you. Yeah, awesome. Terrific. Okay, so where can people get in touch with you? Not only for your services, but maybe even, just chat with you.
Um, Best is email.
Mm-hmm.
That's always the easiest. And my email is Joseph at botanicafloralpdx.com,
Mm-hmm.
but it's spelled, Joseph is spelled Josef, as in Frank.
Yeah.
And it's botanica, not botanical. So don't put the L in there. Joseph at botanica floral, P as in Paul, D as in dog, X.com.
Great. Yeah, and we'll have that in the show notes,
Yeah,
so people can pull that from there. Can they also find you on Instagram too,
true. That and
right?
Facebook. And
That.
that's at Botanica Floral Design on
Mhm.
both of those.
Yeah.
I don't
Good.
tweet, so you can't get me on
Yeah.
Twitter.
Good. Yeah, it's like leave that one alone. Yeah, he's very active on Instagram and Facebook, but Instagram mainly obviously for the, floral design and such. So definitely go there. We have to, I just got this intuitive message that says, "Oh my God, we got to talk about one last thing, Mr. Beasley." Oh
Oh,
my gosh, Mr.
yeah.
Beasley, dogs is a big thing, everybody, for me. You know that.
And me. Yeah.
So, and you too. Mr. Beasley was your mascot.
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, we lost him in November of 20,
Yeah.
but he was with me for 17 years. And
Boy, what parallel.
and that was another
Mm.
kind of intuition thing. I was on the road with Beauty and the Beast. The tour was ending. We were in Greenville, South Carolina. And just like the week before, I was like, I think it's time to get another dog because my other dog had passed away like in 98.
Mhm.
And this was 2003.
Mm.
And I just started thinking about it. And that next week, make a long story short, I met this woman at PetSmart and she had a puppy. And I was like, oh my God, that's the cutest dog I've ever seen. And she was like, well, her name was Ginger. She was 6 months old. She's like, well, Ginger's available. We're looking for a home for her. They had a litter of puppies. And I was like, well, I'm traveling and I can't really have a dog right now, but she's like, well, we're having more puppies in the fall. And I was like, uh-oh. So she gave me her card. And after just like a few days thinking about it, I was like, yes, I want one. And so timing worked out. And so, yeah, I had to drive down to South Carolina to pick him up.
Wow.
And it was love at first sight. Literally, that feeling of your heart just melting. It was like an
Oh,
amazing feeling.
adorable. What kind of
And
dog and what kind of dog breed
he
was?
was a Corgi and Yorkie mix.
Okay, yeah.
Really adorable.
Yeah.
He was a great dog, and he traveled with me everywhere. And he pretty much became the mascot of the business.
Yeah.
Very funny. He's on my Instagram. If you scroll back
Mhm.
far enough,
He's
there's
on
lots.
the website too.
And he's on the. He has a whole gallery on the website.
Yes. Go look at him on the website, everybody. He's adorable.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was great. He was,
yeah.
another. This is another soul connection.
Yeah. That's right.
Miss him every day, but he still fills my heart with joy.
Oh, yeah.
He
Ah,
had a good
love
life.
it. Good. Yeah, I wanted you to share about that because I'm suggesting everybody you go to his website. His website is kind of like walking into Wonderland. It's beautiful, and that is the rebrand that he did in 2020. It's a beautiful site. So take a look at that. Go to his Instagram. If you know friends and family in beautiful Portland, send them to him to not only do florals, which I do. My family is up in Portland and in Vancouver, Washington, so I use him a couple times for sending flowers and wreaths for Christmas and all that. And as well, then his new store, in downtown. Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I always, say is please follow your joy, everybody. Please follow your joy. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening in. You can find more entrepreneurial stories and resources at marladiane.com. And while you're there, enjoy my 3 free downloads to up-level your business and your life. How about you take a screenshot of this episode and tag me on Instagram by sharing your highlights of what you learned today? I'd love to connect there with you. Until next episode, take care.